morning. You join me right now about midday on the bank. I'm tucked in the brolly to stay out of this really cold wind. We're nearing the end of February in 2023, and I'm on what's supposed to be a continuing winter campaign. Let me tell you, things have not been going to plan. We're going to go back a little bit to start off with here, to when this whole winter campaign plan kind of came into play. It goes back to the end of 2021. About October of 2021, I had switched over to DT baits exclusively. Stopped using everything else, just using DT baits. And the results that I was getting were pretty awesome. I was getting some really good quality fish, some big fish, consistently in tough conditions, well into November. That really made me happy and made me think, okay, I want to keep this going. I always fish through the winter. I always try to get a carp through the winter as much as possible. That's been going on for years. I'm on my upper river spot now, where I always go. I have a few other spots now, but this is the main one. And I thought, you know what? I want to do a winter campaign now that I'm on a new bait that has given me an incredible amount of confidence. Let's face it, we're in Canada. There's tons of fish. Pretty much any company's bait you're going to put out here, you're going to catch on. There's no doubt there. And there's a lot of good bait out there. I've used a lot of them. Caught a lot of fish with them. I'm not going to knock any other company's bait. But what I will say is that the switch over to DT for me has been unusually consistent as far as my catch ratio goes. I'm doing just as well on numbers as I ever have, so my numbers did not drop in any way. In fact, in certain sessions, they've actually shot up. So sessions where I would normally go and expect to get 2 or 3 fish for the day, I was having 7 and 8 fish days. So the numbers overall didn't really change, but certain sessions there was a clear difference fishing next to other people using other stuff. But it definitely got me a lot of bigger fish, a lot more big fish than I was used to getting, certainly in short periods of time. Certain sessions where I would have multiple big fish in a session, which is not something that normally happens for me. So I thought, if I've got this new bait, I've got a lot of confidence in it very quickly, I'm having very consistent results, maybe I can keep that going through the winter. So we got to December of 2021. That's usually when I kind of start my winter fishing, is just between Christmas and New Year's. And there was a session that Kevin and I got out, actually to this spot. The weather was still kind of mild. Winter hadn't even shown its face yet. It was cool and it was damp, but it wasn't winter conditions yet, despite actually being winter. Kevin and I did well. I think he had a fish or two, and I had my typical annual big rud to start off my winter campaign. Talk about a racing heart for a moment there. I think Kevin and I both just had mini heart attacks. I'm just trying to set up the third rod. I was trying to tie a chatty together. Kevin's just about getting ready. I think he's got one rod out, or about to put his first rod out. And the first rod I put straight out, just bombed it with a lead clip. Savage drop back using the Pineapple Chunks DT bait pop-up. And what better way to kick off a winter session than a giant rudd. Now Kev has reminded me that we've had them quite a bit bigger in here, but that's a solid rudd. I'm happy with it. Great way to get off the mark. You know, yeah, I'm here for carp, but I'm also somebody that just likes to catch fish, and this is exciting. So the baits are working, the rigs are working, and fish are moving around, and that's what's key. So we're going to use that to our advantage, and hopefully the carp will come to play ball. So I'm going to get this one back. I'm going to get the other rod set up, put this rod back out, and we'll see what the rest of the day brings, because it's not even daylight yet. Awesome. I had a goal that I wanted to achieve, and I had a plan of how I was going to film this whole campaign, and that all went for a shit. But I did have a plan. My plan was that I wanted a winter 30. It's a pretty tall ask, given that I've never had a winter 20. Up until that point, the first 20 I'd ever had, like early in the year, was like April 3rd. So up to that point, I'm like, I've never had a 20 pounder in, December to April, and here I am shooting for the stars to try and get a 30 in that time frame. And I'm not sure why I set that goal, but it was a goal that was set, and it was something I was going to try to achieve. Fast forward about a week, so we're into the new year. We're into the January of 2022. Some snow had fallen, and I was out on the bank again, back to this spot. Much to my surprise, I managed to fish pretty early. The snow had started in the middle of the night, so my plan was that I was going to have similar conditions to that December session a week earlier. But this mild storm came in, dropped a lot of snow early on, and got me a fish. In the excitement of that, I ended up forgetting to put the microphone on. I had filmed a bunch of segments without any audio whatsoever going through. But I had managed to get off the mark for 2022 right away. A little bit later that day, I stuck it out for quite a while, and a little bit later that day I did manage a second fish. Both about the same, low to mid doubles, nothing spectacular, but they were winter bites. I got my snow carp. They were January fish. Way to start off the new year. So yeah, there's that one. It's a little tangled now. This is the lead clip set up. I have it set not to drop the lead. It's on relatively tight because I'm fishing out in clear, open water. There's really nothing out there. If the fish was big enough or got into the weeds, obviously the lead would come off. It's not set super tight, but I want to be able to cast it right back out. Settle down. So almost a cookie cutter. Very similar size. I thought this one was more plump when I saw it roll at the net, but I actually think this one's probably a little bit thinner. So yeah, this one was on the right-hand rod, the one that goes just straight out into the opened, basically 3.5 foot, 4 foot deep, onto this massive mud flat that goes out about 110 yards, and then from where I'm fishing to the left all the way down to the right, it's about 1,000 yards, 1,200 yards. Just this massive mud flat that's very weedy in the summer and very barren this time of year. But the carp like it. So number 2 in the bag. Beautiful fish. Very, very beautiful fish. That was all I had that day. Just the 2 fish, but I was more than happy. When we go forward to the next session, was about a week later. I managed to get down here again. The weather was a little bit milder. Actually, not unlike it is today, with one exception. It was very wet that day. Today it's getting quite nice. The wind is dying down. It's been overcast and frigid all morning. It's starting to get better now. But, you know, it was really overcast that day. It was damp, but it wasn't uncomfortable. And I came out for the day. But I managed 2 fish that day as well. One earlier in the day and one later in the day. Well, another victim to the Cult Classics banana pop-ups on the hinge stiff rig. This one was actually cast a lot closer than the other 2 lines. And man, what a savage take. It absolutely ripped the rod around. I don't know how well you can see, but he's got just this ridiculously golden color and beautiful red tip to the tail. Very, very pale fish just because he's so gold. You know, again, just a small one, but you know, it's so damn cold out. You can't really complain about a winter fish at all. I'm gonna get this fish back. So exciting. Things are starting to look a little bit better now. It's been a long morning. It's just gone past noon. I think we're probably closer to 1 p.m. now. And my middle rod ripped off this time. This one was a little bit further out. This was on the pineapple chunks. The first one this morning was on the banana. And this is, it wasn't as hard a take as the first fish, but it was a much more difficult scrap. This fish took a lot of line, really put up a tussle. 16 pounds, 8 ounces. My 4th fish of the year, 4th carp of this winter campaign to try and get a 20. And man, if I can pull it off to get a 30 this year, that would be something for this winter session stretch. But to get a 16, you know, I'm so happy with that. Just the fact that I've had fish makes me happy. But to have gotten a 16 pounder today, it just helps me stay confident that I'm on the right path to get some bigger fish. I'm definitely in the right spots. What a fish. Really, as great as it was to get 2 more fish, I've now had 4 fish in the first 2 weeks of January to start off 2022. All around the same size, you know, nowhere near 20 pounds, definitely nowhere near 30. The best part about that session was the wildlife. I had seen a fox that day. I had seen deer on my way to the spot. There was a kingfisher that had landed on the rods that day. There was thousands and thousands of migrating swans flying over. It was just incredible. I absolutely loved it. So, had I not caught that day, I would have been completely satisfied with just enjoying nature. But I had 2 fish that day. Now, one of the things about winter fishing in Canada is that you really don't know when winter's going to decide to just show up and stick around. So to set a plan of a winter campaign, especially with the goal of a target size fish, very typically you can get just a couple of sessions in, winter moves in, everything freezes up, heavy snow, river just becomes unfishable, and it might stay that way for 2 months. So there goes your winter campaign. Or you can get a mild winter and ice never forms, the fish move in and stay in, and you can catch all through the whole time. Certainly had those winters in the past, but the start of 2022 was not to be like that. But a week after that second session where I had those 2 more fish and watched the wildlife all day and just had a great day overall. But a week later, or wasn't even quite a week, it was more or less a few days, I think. That's when winter decided, yeah, we're here. We had an incredibly huge dump of snow that night, that particular night. And I got up for work in the morning. Got up at like 4:45 in the morning, expecting there to be snow. We knew that snow was coming. We had no idea how much. So get up at about 4:45, go outside just after 5 a.m., and thinking I can just do a quick shovel and then head off to work. I was quite surprised to see that shovel wasn't going to cut it. Definitely had to dig out the snowblower from the garage. We had in just a few hours, I think it was like 15 inches of snow had fallen. Just a quick check-in. It's blurry as can be. It's January 17th. No fishing today. It's a work day. It's a Monday. But we kind of got dumped on with snow. I've just spent over an hour trying to dig myself out of my driveway, and it's already filling back in. But now it's time to just start brushing off the van. And you can see that there's a bit of snow. So yeah, fishing's going to have to wait a couple more days. There's a lot of ice on the river already, but we'll have to just see how it goes. And it was still coming down. It was coming down quite consistently. And in the time it took me to actually get the snowblower out, clear the driveway, clear off the vehicles, and get ready to go to work, I had to go back around with the snowblower again. It just kept coming down. Ooh. Just had a little whack on the middle rod there. Been out all day, and just this past hour I've started to have some indication on the rods. Yeah, it was absolutely insane. I had to go back through with the snowblower and just keep clearing the snow. So where I should have been starting work at 7 a.m. that day, I didn't even get an attempt to get out of my neighborhood until almost 10 o'clock in the morning. At that point, I got about maybe a third of the way to work, and I was passing vehicles that were off into the ditch and stuck at the end of driveways, and it was just too dangerous. And I turned around and came home and had a snow day home from work. Spent the whole day clearing snow. Just every hour or two I would go back out, clear it out. That snow stuck around. That basically finished off that winter campaign for the rest of January, and I think it even went through pretty much all of February. I think it was kind of early March when I finally got back out. The snow had pretty much gone. Conditions were better. There was still some snow in certain areas, I think there was a couple times I had walked out here just to, drive the river, kind of get my fix of seeing it. I would walk out to some of these spots in the snow and just see if there was ice that was, close enough to the shoreline that it was fishable or not. And in most cases it wasn't. There was a couple times that I would come by on, say, a Friday evening after work. Everything is clear. I would come down the Saturday morning, and through the night it had frozen. So it made it incredibly frustrating. There was a few scenarios where I did make it down kind of early March, and there would be this super thin skim of ice over this whole bay. And it was thin enough that if I cast, I could plunk a lead through it, but it was just thick enough that if I were to get a fish, the line couldn't cut through the ice. And there was one or two occasions where I had sat here for 5 or 6 hours just waiting for it to break up and the wind to push it out, just to try and get 3 or 4 hours of fishing in later in the day. I could have gone home and come back periodically, but sitting here made sure I had the spot and made sure that at the second that ice moved out that I could get lines in. And I did that, I think, 2 different times. One day Dave came down and sat with me for 2 or 3 hours while I had no lines in, just waiting for the ice to move. And right there in front of us, it happened. It all pushed out, and I ended up getting, I think, 3.5, 4 hours of fishing in. Only a blank, but a little bit of determination to try and still nail that winter fish. After that, I got away from the river. Once we get to the end of March, winter was over, spring had started, but the weather was still up and down. It really wasn't sure what it wanted to do. So I kept poking around more of my spring spots where, little creeks, ponds, things like that, where they're going to warm up a little bit faster, just to try and get an actual bite, have a bit of a session. Actually, going back just a bit, in January there was one day where this spot and the rest of the river was all iced up, and Kevin and I think we shot down to one of those other smaller spots, and we had a couple fish that day. I think 2 or 3 fish that day. That was kind of end of January, after the snow had kind of settled down a little bit. But after that, there was nothing until about mid-March, and I did go to one of those small spots, and I had a pretty insane session, actually. If I remember right, I'm pretty sure I filmed it, and I'll put a little link up on the screen somewhere up there to that video. But I think I had like 17 fish that day. It was just a nice March morning. I went there to try and get 1 or 2 small fish just to get my fix because it had been so long. And then, I had like 17 fish that day. It was absolutely bonkers. And that wrapped up the winter. At that point, I was into spring, and it was only a few weeks after that the infamous April session happened with Kevin and Wayne. Dave. Just the insane number of fish that we had. There was multiple 30s caught, the 40-pounder caught. That's how we started spring. A few weeks later, in the start of May, had a 38-pounder and the first mirror of the year. So there was a lot of great fish to start off the spring. But the winter campaign just didn't materialize into what I had hoped. All through the year, I had a really good season. All of us actually, all of my friends, everybody that I talked to, many of the members on the Canadian Carp Society, We all had great seasons. Lots of fish, lots of big fish. There was quite a few mirrors that came out to everyone through the year. Lots of 30-pounders. It was a good season, really good season for everyone. And the whole time I was thinking that winter campaign just fell apart. And I thought, well, I can try again this coming winter. And I didn't know quite if it was going to work or not. I didn't know if the winter was going to be absolute crap again, or if it was going to be mild and I would just crush it. What I did do is made a point of seeking out other swims. So there's 2 other spots along the river that got my interest, one of which I did really well in November. I think I had 3 runs and landed one of them. If you want to see that particular session, that was part of our new series called The Breakdown, where Dave and I both fished that spot at separate times to try and see who could use a tactic that would figure it out the better. Being able to catch there in mid-November made me think, okay, I'm going to add that into the winter rotation, and I'm going to try a couple of different river spots for the new winter campaign. And a spot that Dave fishes quite a lot, a spot that I actually had that 38-pounder in the spring, we wanted to add that into the winter rotation as well. The whole point of having multiple swims would be that if I came here first thing in the morning and it's frozen because it froze through the night and I can't fish it, I don't want to waste my only day to fish that week. So I would travel to one of the other locations. So we added Dave's spot into the mix for the winter campaign to kind of go into this new winter, the end of 2022 and what would be the start of 2023. Now, during the Christmas to New Year's holiday, I ended up getting quite a few days off, and I had a plan of what should have been fishing 5 days in a row. Should have been able to fish 5 mornings in a row. And as is usually the case, my schedule changes, and that's not what happens. I did get out and tried the new location because this location had ice form on it. It wasn't accessible. We had what we call a river blowout, where the winds on Lake Erie push all that muddy water and whatever ice is in the system right down the river. And this is a choke point for it. Well, maybe not a choke point. This is one of the wider sections of the river, but this is a collection point for it, let's say. So when there's crap coming down the river, it builds up right here and becomes unfishable. So I did go try that other swim at Dave's spot. And I did have, I can't remember at this point if I did 2 or 3 sessions there that week. I think it was 2 sessions there that week and one kind of scouting mission in between. Sat behind rods and really didn't have anything. I had watched bait fish. I was watching the birds with where they were diving. I was trying to cast around to find out if there was any weeds on the shallow flats. Tried fishing just over the edge at the drop-off. I did end up seeing a couple fish moving around, but I couldn't see well enough to know what they were. You know, that spot could have any number of different species, pike, trout, you name it. Everything could be in there. But we think that the carp winter in there. We certainly know we can get them early in the spring, but we think they move in there a lot sooner than that. So we wanted to try it. I did see a bald eagle pick a fish up from the surface far on the other side. I had some really crappy footage of it eating in the tree on the other side, but I couldn't tell what it was. The grainy footage just wasn't clear enough, and I was doing it handheld, so everything was shaking because I was cold. It was a lovely spot to sit in for a couple of sessions, and it was neat to see, little pockets of muddy water come up in certain areas that led me to think that there was some fish moving around, but I never did get a take. Hey, got my lines. Buggers. There was one session I was able to get in here on the upper river. It was New Year's Eve, the last day of 2022. My wife's birthday, I might add, but because she sleeps in on her birthday, I came out fishing for the morning. That was cleared with the missus, so I did not get in trouble for that. For those of you that might, if you plan it out, you know what, honey, I'm going to let you sleep in, and just to do that, I'm going to make sure I'm not even in the house. Get the rods out. So I got down here New Year's Eve and put a couple lines out, got them on the spots, and typically the way I fish here is I put two to my left, one in close, one out far, and then one straight out on the flat. At this particular time, I was using, I think I had a banana pop-up, I had a Coldwater Green Beast pink pop-up, the far line to the left, and I would have had kind of a more natural color, like the pale brown, can't remember if it was Superfruit or Coldwater Green Beast, one of those two, just straight out. And I had indication. There was still snow on the ground from earlier in the week, but it was just starting to melt enough that I could get out on the rocks. The ice had melted back to the shore enough that I could get the lines out, and yeah, I was pretty confident that morning that things were going to be good, and I did manage a fish. I was just starting to pack up for the evening, but I know this spot tends to actually do better just before and just after dark. But I really, honestly wasn't expecting it to happen. I was confident with what I put out there. It's small, but it's beautiful. Fought really hard. I am so pleased with this fish. I'm gonna get some carp care on him, and I'm gonna get him back in as quickly as possible. That one came to the pink Coldwater Green Beast on a German rig over a little PVA stick of my stick mix. That simple. The water was a fair bit murky. It wasn't great. Conditions were not what I would have said were the best given my experience in this place. But I managed to fish on the very last day of the year. And I thought to myself, maybe I can try the winter campaign again. Maybe these last couple sessions that have been tough, maybe I can just kind of continue on what I did the year before. To end the year with a fish after starting the year in the same spot with a couple fish. I thought, maybe this is a sign that I should keep at it and maybe not continue the goal of that 30 or even the 20, just try to have a good winter campaign. Here we are into 2023, end of February, and this is my third session out. I did get out in mid-January. I don't know if I really want to count it as a proper session, but I did think, you know what I'm going to do is, if I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep on the DT baits, kind of winter plan. They have a bait that they kind of consider their winter bait called the cold water green beast. I've caught on it here, and I know it. I know it gets activity. I've pretty much caught on it everywhere I've taken it, but to catch here in the winter, I've now had a few fish with it, and so kind of my loose feed is cold water green beast boilies. I started introducing them on that New Year's Eve session. It got me that fish on the pink pop-up. So January, I continued that. I shot down after work to do the January live stream, which did not go the way it was supposed to go. I couldn't get the phone to turn the camera the right way. My signal was not great. My battery died super fast. And to top it all off, I had a smack and lost it. But I had an opportunity. I blew it. I stuck it out for a few hours after the camera and my phone just completely died. And I had a few more indications after that. But I thought, you know what, maybe just going with the boilie approach was a little bit much at the start. Maybe I should have used some more crumb, some more PBA sticks, stuff like that. But I'm confident sticking with the cold water green beast as my free offerings. Well, after that 4-hour session that afternoon in January, winter decided to be a pain again. This spot has been freezing up pretty much every opportunity I have to get out here, and melting through the week. So while I'm at work, this is wide open. I'll come down through the week and check on it, and it looks good. I'll come down on a Saturday or Sunday morning, and no chance. All frozen. I did finally come down last weekend. Again, my typical through the week. Came down on a Wednesday, it was frozen solid. Came down after work on the Friday, the Saturday morning last weekend, and the ice had broken away quite a lot, and there was plenty of open water to fish into. The forecast said it was going to stay above zero. The winds were supposed to keep a little bit of a wave in the water, so I thought for sure I had a chance there was going to be no ice. I got here Sunday morning super early. I got 3 lines out, and then within an hour from upriver, whatever little bits of ice did form through the night somehow decided to come loose and drift down and fill this bay, take out my lines, and ruin any chance I had at getting a fish. I sat here for about 2 hours with the lines out, hoping the rest of this ice would just kind of push together and push out into the main current, and I would have open water again. And it didn't happen. So I don't even think it was 9 o'clock yet in the morning, and I packed up and I went to one of those smaller locations where I typically get a few winter bites, and that spot was frozen. It was frozen enough that I couldn't fish half of the area, but I did manage to get 3 lines out for a few hours. Still a lot of drifting ice that I had to keep adjusting to get around it because it was taking out the lines. I did get a few liners right before I left, but no fish. I was meant to be out yesterday, and I'm in kind of a stretch of 5 days off from work, mainly because I have an ice fishing trip coming up in a few days. So I thought I'd make the most out of my mornings leading up to that ice fishing trip and try to get a carp on the bank. I was supposed to be out yesterday. Schedules changed. It just didn't work out that I was going to be able to come out. I ended up catching up on sleep that I must have needed. I just woke up in a startle at 10:30 in the morning yesterday, having no clue what was going on. Typically, I wake up between 4:30 and 5 in the morning. I had an alarm set, never heard it whatsoever. I didn't end up waking up until my wife left for work. So I must have needed a lot of sleep. Basically, I spent the whole day just editing footage, going through clips for other projects that I'm working on, like CCS TV, things like that for the Canadian Carp Society. And I thought, you know what? I have to get out Sunday morning. I've now kind of lost my window to fish on Saturday because of scheduling and then because of sleeping in. I'm not going to miss Sunday. So my son and I came down for a drive yesterday afternoon just to see the conditions of the river. There was a northwest wind blowing, which pushes any chance of any ice or anything to the far side, over to the American side of the river. It was a strong northwest wind as well, so it was cold, but it was definitely putting a big chop on the water, because now this is also going against the flow. The river flows south to north, so a north wind just kicks up a huge chop of rollers out in the middle, and there was no ice to be found. So I thought, okay, the wind is going to shift from north to south again, which is not ideal for what could come downriver and build up in this bay. But it'll be a warmer wind, and if it shifts east at all, those bait fish are going to build up in this bay, and the carp always follow the bait fish. It's very hard to come down here when there's a lot of bait fish in the shoreline, and you know the bait fish are in this area. It's very hard to be here, even in the winter, and not catch a fish, because if the bait fish are here, the carp are here, there's pike here, there's perch. Basically, all of those species follow the bait fish. If the bait fish are not here, it doesn't mean you can't catch, but it means it's going to be tough. It means you're going to wait for those fish to move in or be passing through as they look for those schools of bait fish. So here I am. I've put in the whole morning. I've had a couple of indications in the last little while. The strongest indication I had at one point was the left-hand rod. It didn't pull out of the clip. I didn't get a beep on the alarm, but the tip pulled around really tight to the left, and as I got up and went towards it, it let back. So that tells me that something swam into the line, pulled it a little bit, most likely between the lead and the rod, not on the rig end, and then became free of it. So what that tells me is something was down there, something's moving around. But it didn't materialize into anything of use. And since I've been talking to you here, kind of recapping the way the last 2 winters have now gone for me, had a quick whack on that middle rod, which is over in the same area, just out further. And nothing further has materialized from that. Here you are brought up to speed now with where I am in this attempt at winter campaign fishing for carp. Like I said, I've had some years that have just been absolutely insane and I catch consistently. But the last few, It's not been the case. It's been very hard going. But it's just one of those challenges that I just love sticking to. I love getting winter carp. You know, if there was 2 feet of snow on the ground, as long as there was open water, I would still be sitting here. I love the chance of getting a fish when you shouldn't be able to. You know, most people that fish carp here in Canada, from about the start of November until halfway through April, their gear gets packed away and they don't even involve themselves with anything to do with fishing. That's completely fine. You know, everybody has other interests. I have a lot of other interests as well. The problem is, for me, fishing very easily overtakes all my other interests. I might have plans to sit at home and, you know, maybe draw or read, do some art projects with the kid, play video games or something like that. You know, any number of things that I like to do. And as soon as I know there's good conditions to be out here on the river, a lot of that gets shoved to the side when I'm out here on the river. So yeah, as it stands right now, we are nearing the end of February, and I have yet to get a carp this year. I have had a lot of indication and a lot of wax now in these 3 sessions so far this year, but nothing that I can definitively say has been a hard take. Now, I have had fish this year. I did get a nice fishing session in for perch. Didn't film it or anything, just went out, had a good fishing day with my uncle, had some good perch through the ice. So it was nice to get that fix, but I really, really want a carp. I haven't even gone for trout yet this year. I really should have. I've had the opportunity. I didn't go. But I'm going to fish the rest of today. I've got tomorrow morning available to me. I may even have Tuesday morning available to me. And then Wednesday I'm up north ice fishing. So I have about a month left of my winter campaign. I go to the end of March when the first day of spring starts. So that's a month from now. I'm hoping that I can get a carp in between now and then. And if I do, I will let you know. I know he's small, but the first carp of 2023. I was very much not paying attention. I was playing on my phone because I was just about to be ready to pack up. Now, if we go back to New Year's Eve, when I had my last carp, and the last one of last year, about 3 o'clock, 3:30 was bite time. Well, it just passed 3 o'clock, so I was getting ready to pack up for the day, hoping that maybe I could come back out tomorrow and get another chance. And sure enough, while I wasn't looking, the middle rod just ripped off. That middle rod is the one that had the pink cold water green beast pop-up. This is all tangled in a mess now. I'll have to fix that. Despite it being freezing cold and very small, that was a hell of a scrap. Very, very tiny mouth on this fish. I don't want to keep him out, so I'm going to get him back in the water. 2023, the carp season has officially kicked off with one tiny carp. But that's one more than I had yesterday. I am so excited. that just made my week. Okay, I gotta get this fish back.
Next level.
Oh wow, I have no idea how much you would have seen of that. I just put the first fish back and the camera shut off. I was getting the rod ready to go back out and the left-hand rod ripped off. So before I show you that second fish, I'm gonna get the first rig back out there, the Green Beast. I gotta see if I got any PVA left tied up because I've already packed that stuff away. If I don't, I'll just put out a single. I'll get that other fish up here and get its rig back out because clearly we just hit a bite window. 2 fish in 10 minutes. Boom, boom. I don't expect that third rod to go at this point because it's way off of that area where these 2 fish came from, but you never know. You absolutely never know. So I'm gonna try and get that one. Get this rod back out first. No PVA tied up. I used it all. Look at that. Got 2 rods back on the spots. Can you see the rods? I have no idea what you can see there. So 2 rods back out there. Well, 1 on the spot, 1 where it was just out in front here, my kind of shallow spot. The second fish is actually a fair bit smaller than the first one, but it's got some neat color to it. Almost a little bit iridescent on the flank. So I think I'm going to unhook it in the net, get that rod back over there to that spot so that I've got 2 rods in play. I'm going to set up my other net because I only set up one expecting, you know, if I had a chance it would be 1 chance. I almost caught myself unready by only having 1 net together. So I'm going to put together the second net, get this rod the fish unhooked, line back over, then I'll bring up the second fish to see you. What a pretty little fish. Another one with a really tiny mouth. Yes, I know it's a small fish, but you know what? It's freaking February. You know, any bite is a spectacular opportunity. Look at how tiny this is. I have so many other spots that I go to just to catch these, and they rarely get any bigger. Here I am on this massive, massive river, and I get 2 small ones back to back. Man, I could not be happier. Really couldn't. If you told me I have the option of catching a 30-pounder or 2 small ones today, I wouldn't care which way it went. Sure, I'd love to catch a big fish, but to get 2 bites back to back like that, you know what? That's probably going to be a hell of a lot more exciting. I don't know what's going on there. The left-hand rod, the line just came out of the clip and the bobbin dropped. There's a lot of slack line in that, so I'm going to get this fish back real quick. I'm going to see what's happening there. myself. It's too much glare. Okay, fish number 3. Again, to the cold water green beast, pink pop-up, is a much better fish. We're looking at mid-doubles there. Good belly on it. Fish number 4 is another tiny one. Gave a hell of a scrap, though. I would say all 4 of them have been really strong fish for their size. So I've got the lines back on the spots. I've got both nets have a fish. So I'm a little bit discombobulated. I just need to get a few things situated. I'm going to show you the 4th fish first, the smaller one, just so I can have that net free. And then I'm going to show you the 3rd fish, which will be the bigger one. So far that's 2 fish to the cold water green beast and 2 fish to the banana pop-ups. But man, when you need to capitalize in the wintertime, if you get one bite, get a rod back on that spot. As you can see there, 2 bites in quick succession, got the rods back out. No PVA sticks, no nothing, just blasting singles back onto those spots and 2 more fish right away. It's a time-tested tactic from, you know, all those pioneers over in the UK. They know what they're talking about. But that does apply to wild waters as well. You know, I sat here all day. I'm ready to pack up, ready to go home. And yeah, out of the blue, bite time comes around, and it's just a group of fish that have moved into this bay. So that's 4 fish in the span of maybe 25 minutes. Because I just let this camera run while I was trying to sort that stuff out, and it's been going for 17. So yeah, the first couple fish and then a couple more. Could not have expected this to happen. I was hoping for 1 bite, and I think I missed my opportunity this afternoon after I had a slow take and brought it in to find a tangled rig. So I'm going to get these fish sorted. The lines are back out. I'm going to kind of hope for another chance. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come. Bite time might have shut down. They might not pick up again until hours of darkness when I'm at home. Wow. Absolute craziness. And I've got 8 minutes left on this card, so I'm also going to change the card on this before I do anything else. Okay, so this was fish number 4. This was the second one on banana. Get it out of the net here. So another small one. Beautiful red fins on it. Again, just capitalizing on bite time, casting a single back out to make sure that I had something on the spot. Another beauty. Tiny, tiny mouth. Seems like everywhere we go in Canada, there's 2 strains of carp. One with tiny mouths, one with freaking huge mouths. So far, looks like it's just the tiny mouths. What a beauty. What an absolute beauty. I'm going to get this one back, and then we'll take a look at the bigger one. Okay, so this was the 3rd fish landed. This is the biggest one of the day. Now that I've had the other lines back out, nothing else has happened. So it looks like a group of fish came in, had a quick munch, and have taken off. I just happened to be in the right place to get 4 of them. How's that? I would say low double. It's a little bit smaller than I thought. I thought it was a little bit wider, but great belly on it. Beautiful fish. Every one of these fish perfectly nailed right in the center of the bottom lip. I am so beyond pleased. This fish is gorgeous. Oh. Settle down. I'll get you back in a second. So, I'm actually going to start packing up. I had already started packing up, and everything kind of went to carnage. So my camera is just taking pictures because I'm doing certain motions or saying certain words that trigger the camera to kick off. But I'm gonna get this fish back. I'm gonna start winding things in, get the brawly taken down. I'm gonna wrap this session up, but I think I'm coming back tomorrow morning.